Good afternoon. I'm Sarah Mangelsdorf, President of the University of Rochester. I regret that I can only be with you today with a taped message. An unexpected scheduling conflict has made it necessary for me to pivot to video, which seems to be a routine course of action these days. In fact, if I never hear the phrases pivot to video or pivot to online, it will be too soon. I do wish I could be with you virtually to celebrate this milestone, but I'm with you in spirit and a deep commitment to the ongoing essential work of the Rochester Monroe Anti-Poverty Initiative and to the Employer Pledge. And I look forward to a time when we can celebrate in person without videos or screens or mute buttons and shout out our praise for RMAPI. Before I begin, I would like to thank RMAPI Director Aqua Porter and co-chairs Underwood and Braverman for inviting me to speak today and for their incredible leadership. I was thrilled to accept this invitation, not only as the president of the University of Rochester, but as a citizen of Rochester who is deeply committed to social and economic justice. As you may know, the University of Rochester is the 5th largest private sector employer in New York State and the largest private employer in upstate New York. Our large size, combined with our stated vision and Meliora values, which include our fundamental commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion, there was no question that we would sign the Employer Pledge. The University of Rochester must lead the way in demonstrating our commitment to our employees, our students, and our community. The COVID-19 pandemic has hit us all hard and has highlighted something very important to me and to all of us. We are and will continue to be dependent on our essential service providers and public-facing employees. These are the dedicated individuals who have kept our communities alive and moving forward during this pandemic. But this group of workers is not represented equally across gender, racial, and socioeconomic lines. Workers deemed essential are more likely to be women, people of color, and immigrants. They tend to live below the federal poverty line. They are more likely to have children at home, and many live with others who also have frontline jobs. These are the facts. And so the question before us is, what can we do to hire, retain, and promote workers from underserved communities to ensure that they are provided with pathways to advancement and further professional success? What practices and policies can we develop and deploy to better support people impacted by poverty? At the University of Rochester, it is important to acknowledge and own the fact that we have not always been a leader in answering these questions. It is a fact that the diversity of our faculty and administrative leadership is unacceptably low. I am fortunate to have colleagues at the University of Rochester who, like myself, have been involved in successful efforts to recruit, hire, and retain faculty and administrative staff of color at other universities. We will use that experience to implement strategies at the University of Rochester to do the same. We will also use the RMAPI Employer Pledge as a tool to hold ourselves accountable. Words will no longer suffice. Action is needed. Currently, we're in the process of developing multi-pronged efforts that we can implement even as our institution faces considerable financial challenges from the COVID-19 health crisis and economic downturn. When it comes to recruitment, as of July 1st, we commenced Together for Rochester, a year-long fundraising and engagement campaign with the goal of raising $100 million. Fundraising to support diverse faculty recruiting efforts will be a priority in this campaign. Many of our peer institutions have already invested substantially in this area, and we must do the same. The Together for Rochester campaign will focus on other key diversity efforts as well as scholarships, financial aid, and career support, and it will provide a platform to formally launch 3 new alumni affinity groups: the Black Alumni Network, the Women's Network, and the First Generation Network. And when it comes to retaining our own valuable and talented colleagues, we know that creating a climate of inclusion and designing policies that promote diversity is key. That is why, beginning this fall, every school dean and unit leader will work with our Office of Equity Inclusion to set specific diversity goals and develop metrics to measure progress towards those goals. Those reports will be made public and will inform our ongoing diversity efforts. Earlier this month, we also launched our Preventing Harassment and Discrimination online training, which every employee is required to take. The course is one part of a number of opportunities being planned to address unconscious bias and racism. We also know that childcare is a critical issue for our employees. This was true before COVID and has only been amplified as a concern as the fall arrives and school districts across Rochester and surrounding counties have announced varied schedules if they're going to go back at all. We recognize that parents unable to work remotely may be particularly challenged to arrange childcare for their school-age children and provide the support needed to facilitate remote learning. That is why we were pleased to announce last week that the university is partnering with the YMCA to ease childcare challenges for employees most in need of assistance. The university has secured and subsidized a number of spots in the YMCA's School of Rock program, which provides childcare and support for remote learning. It is also important to understand the trauma of institutional racism and the impact that it's had on our employees. One way we are seeking to address the trauma our past may have caused is by taking down tributes to George Whipple on our medical center campus. George Whipple was a Nobel laureate and the first dean of our medical school, but he also resisted admitting Black students to our university. To allow students, faculty, and staff to begin to heal from this history and to grow forward together, we have removed his name from what was his former office. The office will now be re-envisioned as a multicultural space. There is, of course, much more work to do here, but Dr. Taubman, the current dean of the medical school, and the CEO of the medical center, along with me and our senior colleagues, are committed to doing that work. When it comes to the work of job recognition and promotion for our employees, we at the University of Rochester strive to provide paths for upward growth and movement for our employees. We plan to improve our efforts in this area. Home ownership is another way to incentivize employees and build generational wealth. To assist with the dream of home ownership, the university has partnered with the City of Rochester and several banks and credit unions to offer regular full-time and part-time faculty and staff residents and fellows $9,000 towards the purchase of a primary residence in the neighborhood surrounding the university. In 2017, as part of RMAPI and our partnership with East High, the university expanded the program to include the Beechwood, Emma, and Market View Heights neighborhoods. Thanks to over $1.5 million in university support, more than 520 employees have purchased their first home in the city. We realize that this pandemic is accelerating inequitable gaps in housing, health, education, and economic and social welfare. These gaps require a broad institutional response, not just from the university, but from the great community of which we are all a part. I'm pleased to note that working with many of our key partners in the community, some of whom are participating on this Zoom, we have established the Committee on Community Engagement for Racial Justice. This new committee is designed to work in collaboration with community members to identify critical needs in the community. The committee will work with individuals and agencies to determine ways that the university can more effectively and efficiently share expertise and human capital to address those needs. Given the evolving nature of this public health and economic crisis, it is extremely important that we partner with the community around its most urgent needs. We will think creatively and collaboratively about short and long-term solutions to stem the impact of structural racism. I am thankful for the participation of so many members of our community in this important effort and look forward to the committee's recommendations. These are just a few ways we are trying to make the University of Rochester a more inclusive, diverse, committed, and welcoming employer and a more engaged partner with the Rochester community. However, this is just the beginning. We have a long way to go to ensure that all of our citizens have the chance for upward mobility. I commend all the employers joining us today who have signed the pledge. Despite the challenges we face with this pandemic, this is the time for us all to act, to stand up and do right by our employees. We at the University of Rochester believe strongly in the work that RMAPI is doing, and signing the employer pledge is just one way that we honor the commitment to the work and to our employees. Thank you all for joining today. I look forward to working, growing, and learning from all of you.